our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans.
Okay.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tatah. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home.
After centuries of misguidance caused by slavery, colonization, lack of awareness of our history, and institutional disinformation, a new Africa is on the move, determined and getting organized. Afrika tuko pamoja. Welcome to the United Kingdoms of Great Africa. The United Kingdoms of Great Africa is the credo of the alliance movement of all African intelligences around a common ideal, the unity and development of a strong, conquering and completely dedogmatized Africa through the channel of a strong organization called the Africa We Want Global. You are an African, Afro-descendant, researcher, historian, scientist, or simply an NGO. You want to be part of this great historical march towards the total freedom of an uninhibited Africa? Visit our website www.africawewantglobal.org. Register and discover the range of our platforms for change. AfricaWeWantGlobal.org. Join the kingdom, be part of it. An initiative of Dr. Susan Tatah.
Wonderful, wonderful, beautiful people. We have the powerhouse of the continent and the powerhouse of the diaspora with us right here. As you can see, it's going to be a surprise show as we have King Maponga Joshua live with us, and we have our Baba, Professor James Small, in studio with us on the Pan-African Daily today. And we just want to have a conversation with these two big brains. We want advice, we need love, we need cuddling, we need attention, we need guardians, we need everything. When we are sick, and we are so sick, we know it in the kingdoms of Africa and the queendoms of Africa that we go to the royal house. And we have two powerful royals here in front of us. When we are seeking to understand what the future holds for us, or we are confused at a point in time where we don't know what to focus on, what to look on, we go into the royal house of our footstools and we ask for divine, we ask for wisdom, we ask for knowledge. When our hearts are yearning and we begin to fear the unknown, when we are no more certain whether a brother is a brother, a sister is a sister, when we don't know whom we even hang around with in the name of brotherhood and sisterhood, so we just go back to our royal kingdoms, to the God of our ancestors, pour libations, ask for wisdom and guardians. When we are so drained out and powered and we don't have the energy, when we mingle with other kind of spirit, when we are fighting a spiritual war that we don't know who your enemy is, even the one standing ahead of you, then we go back to the God of our ancestors to seek wisdom, knowledge, and power and understanding. So we are here tonight and we want to share a warm conversation, advise ourselves. I actually brought Professor James Small, who has been long away, and we want to get in touch with him to get his guidance, his knowledge, his advice. And we also have the Kingdom of Zim right here with us, and we need wisdom and support. So today, we're just going to listen to what our Baba is going to tell us, what message he has for us, what message he has for his son, King Maponga Joshua, to empower him, to empower all of us on this journey, because it's not easy. We do know it. We don't even know who is who again. When we are at war, even your brother, your sister, your mother can become, your opponent. But we do know that we are one and indivisible. So I welcome all of you that are joining the stream tonight, whether you're watching from Farmers of Thought, we want to celebrate and thank you, or whatever platforms we are connecting from. So I would just go straight like, Prof is here. Prof, how are you doing? Baba, I can't hear you. Your microphone is mute. Please unmute all your microphones. King Maponga, your microphone is muted. Please do unmute.
Now,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, well, I've been away for a minute. I had to have a knee replacement, and that was a very difficult journey. Getting used to something that's not a part of your flesh. Titanium is actually what it's made of. And learning to walk again, and learning to find your balance again. So I'm happy to be back. I know the technology will fight us all the way. So let's take our time with the technology and ask our people to forgive us as we get the technology in order. But it's just an honor to be back with my brother, Mapunga, and my sister, Susan, and to tell our people we're not entertainers. We're people trying to bring some guidance in the struggle for freedom. We have not gotten even close to freedom. We still have foreigners in our lands everywhere in the world, stealing our resources, still today raping our women at will. We are following their religions, which don't protect us from anything, doesn't give us an appropriate guidance to build free nations for ourselves. And we're so attached psychologically, we can't let go. It's like holding on to hot electric wires, and you're being executed, but we can't let go of their religion. We can't let go of their philosophy. We can't let go of their culture, even though it's electrocuting us. And so we really have to say to ourselves, it's not good enough that a few thousand is able to make it to university and get good jobs when we're talking about tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people in need of stability, in need of economic, politics, and culture. It's not sufficient for a few people to go to Britain to study, and a few to America to study, and a few to Holland to study, when millions upon millions are just eking out a living in the wealthiest piece of earth on the planet. There's no way to be satisfied with this. No way to be satisfied with this. The fantasy of freedom have to be ripped apart so that people can see what we are calling fantasy in the African world is just that, is fantasy. It's not reality. True freedom means I can feed myself and my brother's children and my sister's children without any real effort. True freedom means that my identity is my identity. I don't have to practice my enemy's language to speak, my enemy's religion to pray, my enemy's food to refresh myself, my enemy's clothes to disguise and dress myself, my enemy's technology to express myself, and then I set myself free. Where is the freedom there? And the elite few who have gotten drunk and intoxicated from the narcotics of colonialism and imperialism, Those few stand in the way of our freedom. We have to be clear about telling them they're standing in the way of freedom. There's no way we should still be financing the French economy while in Niger we are suffering, in Chad we are suffering, in Central African Republic we're suffering, in Cote d'Ivoire we're suffering, in Mali we're suffering. And the French are living large and beautiful cities and all kinds of niceties based on the wealth of Africa. And the Africa who's sending that wealth to France is impoverished and suffering. And the same thing with the former British colonies. Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania, South Africa. They are illusions of freedom. That's not freedom. When people go, oh, it takes time, Mr. Small, you want things to happen too quickly. Freedom doesn't take time. It's a decision to make. Am I going to be me and be free? Or I'm going to remain to be a clone of them and be just that, an illusion of a human being, because I'm a clone. I'm what's that thing when they make it an aberration? That's not real. I'm real when I'm Zulu again. I'm real when I'm Xhosa again. I'm real when I'm Yoruba again. I'm real when I'm Akan again. When I think in that thought, when I see God the way our ancestors saw God 50 million years ago, I'm only free when I go back there. Anything else, I'm in the shackles of somebody else's reality, pretending to be myself. And so this whole discussion, any discussion, has to be about freedom to be African. How can I say I'm a free person when I'm not an African? When the African language is not what controls the construct of my mind? When our ancestors' worldview is not what controls my understanding of the universe? When the way I explain cosmology is explained by those who put me at the bottom of things while they're at the top, and I can expect that I can be free? When I look at nature and the ecology, I choose the one who poison, denigrate, ruin, and destroy nature as my partner instead of my ancestors who built a partnership with nature, and I call myself free. So this is about freedom. We can say we love each other, but that's a Western word that is as empty as a bucket with no bottom. A bucket with no bottom holds nothing. And so we throw this word love and unity around, and it means nothing because we don't talk about the restoration of the integrity of the African indigenous original being. And until that's what we are talking about, anything else is a counterfeit. Is a counterfeit. I don't want to come back sounding so harsh, but this is a harsh world. Our people in the Congo right now is suffering, being slaughtered on a daily basis. The big, beautiful freeways are there only to move things from the mine to the ports, not for them to get from village to village and to build hospitals and clinics and schools. And we talk about the richness of the Congo. It enriches the American corporations, the Canadian corporations, the Israeli corporations, the British corporations, the French corporations. But is it enriching the Congolese people? No. They find a few of our lost, desperate people and put guns in their hands and says, you will be given this little bit of crumb if you help me steal from the rest of the people. And out of desperation, misguidance and confusion under the religion of the killers and murderers and rapists and genociders of our ancestors, we go along with this thing. I fight for one thing. to be free, to be African again. That is the only true freedom. Anything else is slavery in disguise, colonialism in disguise. Only when we return. Because if I'm an apple and you alter me in some way, the only way I can be an apple again is when you restore me as an authentic apple as I were before you interfered with my process. And the same as the African. I'm not getting confused by driving one of his cars made out of metal that came out of my ground that he stole, that he is advanced and I'm following his advancement. Then do I murder my own people to steal the wealth out of the ground to build a car like his? You know? The people talk about chocolate, something as simple as chocolate, cocoa bean, which we slave to grow and get paid hardly no money for our labor. And they make billions in Holland, in England, and America, making chocolate bars and chocolate candies and chocolate cake. And we sit and wish to have the chocolate cake that came from our cocoa beans that they paid us nothing for, while we struggle just to get bread at the roadside, to get some fish and make some stew, to dip the bread. While he took my cocoa beans and made his chocolate and made billions and left me with crumbs and pennies. We have to have some real discussions about freedom and what freedom really means. And I haven't been hearing that discussion. People talking the president, and then I'll end, Baba Mapunga, and you can make some comments. But the president of the United States is calling some sort of conference of all African nations, I think in August. And they're trying to decide where this would happen in America. And the reason they're calling this conference is so that they can bully and frighten African nations not to support or have relationships with China or Russia. Otherwise, America will penalize you, will marginalize you. If we, as government, stood up and said, okay, all the borders are closed, no raw material, leave this continent. Let's see who get marginalized. Let's see how sanctions work. When the sanctions is no African raw material will leave the continent of Africa, but anywhere in the world. We're going to sanction the whole world. You think our situation would be any worse than it is now if we close our borders and close our minds? It would get better overnight because they will crawl at our feet like the snakes that they are, begging at our gates. If only we had the courage to tell our ancestors, we love you enough to set your children, who are you and your future, free. That's it. I hope you're happy I'm back. Let's go.
We are damn happy. I mean, King Mapunga, I think I'll wait for his reaction. You can already see. Yeah. Mapunga?
What a great honor to have you back in health, though it is not yet 100%, but to see you back again, sitting, sharing great wisdom, great insights, great encouragement, and above all, just a repositioning of the battlefield that we are engaged on. Quality of the enemy we are dealing with, the quality of the weapons we must be using to fight this battle, the quality of the African who must engage in war. But above everything else, what I hear you saying is the quality of our enemy who we are fighting. And I want to say right on top of the program that we are at war.
At war.
Whether we like it or not, whether we are religious or quote unquote pagan, whether you are, it does not matter. Whether you are in urban areas or you are in rural areas, you are in diaspora The other day you were screaming you can't breathe. The African nation is an endangered species, and we are on a battlefield to being extinguished and be pushed out of the food chain of the global conversation. And having said that, we needed also to highlight to our young people, particularly those who are obsessed with colonial machinery and scientific infrastructures, to think that monsters such as technology, civilization, democracy are a solution to the African problem. Our independence has never been honest because it never addressed the fundamental issue of African dignity, African respect, self-actualization, self-determination. And this has to be spoken in the ambit that this is our home as Africans. There's no way we can be talking development and we can be talking advancement of our economies at the destruction of our homesteads, when our homes are being dug up into mine shafts and our cattle and goats are falling into those shafts. And as Honorable Small is saying that at the end of the digging and etc., nothing remains. I want to share something that is very painful that I just learned a few days ago. The mining industry come to Zimbabwe, for example, and they dig up the rare mineral platinum. And let's say they dig up platinum, let's say 100 kgs, so to speak, or 10,000. Meanwhile, they're digging maybe 10,000, 100,000 plus, tons of ore. Then they declare to the government that they dug up 100,000 tons of platinum ore. Then they value the 100,000 platinum of ore on the international market, and they only pay tax, which is 14% of the 100,000 tons. Then they move the ore from Zimbabwe into South Africa, into a place they call Rustenburg. Then they purify the platinum. While they're purifying the platinum, they're able to extract uranium, they're able to extract chrome, they're able to extract gold, and 16 other minerals from the ore itself, where they are willing to pay only for the ore and the tax on the ore. By the time they finish purifying the mineral, it is almost 100 times more beneficiated than what they paid. Now they sell that to China, they sell that to the UK, they sell that to America. And the profits from the real mineral itself, then they bank the money out there, the money does not come back. Therefore, the African is only paid for the ore, which is literally peanuts, so to speak, because you are being paid for the raw material itself. When it comes to the purified material itself, with all the other elements that are inside that are not included on the sheet of the ore, the money never comes back. Then we ask ourselves, why is Africa poor? Because Africa is not able to determine the prices of its own minerals, beneficiate its own minerals, and sell them at the value at which the minerals are due. I'm only mentioning one mineral. Zimbabwe has more than 86 of those rare minerals being sought for in the world. When you produce our gold here and we purify it to 90 to 99%, the world market still says it's not clean enough until we have put it in our own refineries. And by so doing, they say it is 80%, it is 90%. The 5, 10, 15, 20% is just lies. Then they take that stuff, when they purify it in their space, they don't come back to the country where they dug up the gold to repay for the value at which they move the minerals out. Cocoa, as my honorable is saying, is the same thing. Oil, it is the same thing. So I want to make something very clear that as Africans, we don't need to produce more. We need to purify more. I wish this could reign if we are to be talking economic development in terms of creating jobs and competing and whatever. I'm not fancy and I'm not excited about that because we're feeding a bottomless pit, however. But for what it is worth, if our governments had the political will to break the back of colonialism, as Dr. Small is saying, one of the first foremost things we must do, it is actually to learn from China and learn from Russia that you cannot be afraid of sanctions when you are self-sustainable. Right. Russia is not scared of sanctions. Russia has its own oil. Russia has its own bread. Russia has its own gas. Russia has its own currency. And Russia can call its own terms that when you are buying my wheat and etc., you are going to buy these things on my price and you're going to deposit the money into my account here in Moscow, or else I'm switching off the gas tank. Now, when African leaders could understand this call that I'm making for one African stock exchange, the purpose of that it is to gather all the minerals and agricultural projects, water issues, and everything else into one space, so that we can have one selling point of the African raw materials. This includes cobalt, which the Chinese are smuggling out to be making the iPhones, but they're taking it out of the country for nothing. And it's coming back at prices that are exorbitant, like iPhones, iPads, and all these computer products. So we need to start having a discussion, a very serious discussion with the young people. If you are going to revolt, start revolting against the ill will, the poor, weak will, the banana backbone will of our academic institutions, our economic institutions, our government institutions, in holding the bull by the horns and causing the change and the shift and mindset, which we need. How beautiful that Russia can close its gates and in less than 2 weeks, the price of petrol, of bread, of gas shoots through the roof. Because the one who is producing it is able to close the tap. So if these people think we are sick and crazy, how about we just stop exporting our gold? Stop exporting our chrome, stop exporting our coal. I bet you their industries will come to a halt immediately. Their factories will close down. Their food supply will collapse. Their power stations in China will close down. Because they can only survive as long as the abused is constantly cooperating with the abuser, and our politicians have become the landlords of the colonial system and their handlers who are in the West, who put them as puppet governments to manage and further oppress the African people. I want to begin to say land belongs to us. We don't apologize for that. The economy belongs to us. We don't apologize for that. Education must belong to us. It has not yet arrived to us. The economy must belong to us. It has not yet arrived. Spirituality belongs to us. It has not yet arrived. The list goes on to fashion, to entertainment, and other spaces. But until we take full hold of our value chain, from our mental value chain to our diet value chain to our academic value chain, and we'll be able to see how far have we drifted away from who we are to where we are now, from where we are coming from. We may think that having a tarred road and having a hospital on the corner of the road is development, when in fact that hospital is merely to cure you from the same tuberculosis they caused by digging asbestos and feeding you with wrong food. Now they build your hospital and you're excited that, oh, la, 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 we have a hospital next door, we have a university. There's not a university, it's a photocopying machine of the fools that are going to be working in the same colonial system. So this for me is, I've woken up to discover that it's a chicken and egg, a dog chasing its own tail. And until we stop and say, Africa, stop a little bit. How do we do business as Africans? And how can we maximize on our resources? I can't say much. We will be footnotes on the global conversations instead of being the subject matter of our own civilization. I thank you.
Yeah. How dare America to think that they could chastise African nations for not supporting their efforts in Ukraine. When they put that fake president in Ukraine and they drove the elected president out of the country, they begun that war which is mostly an illusion. They don't care about the Ukrainian people, not one bit. But they made sure that the Ukrainian refugees had a nice packed suitcase and a rollerboard and a bus to go on to another country that opened their arms. So that's not what happened to the rest of the world's refugees, you know. So they play games that we don't see. But we must be clear. Mr. Trump, who was the president here, showed the world that you do not have to respect any treaties. He closed the NAFTA treaty with Mexico and Canada, just like that, and said you will renegotiate on no treaty. He went to Asia. He closed the Asian treaty with all the Asians, said you renegotiate on no treaty. And we still feel locked to treaties that was created during colonialism with a gun at both sides of our head, while our children on the floor with their feet on their neck and a gun at their head, forcing us to sign. And we call those things treaties. You know, we need to break all of them, walk away from all of them. There isn't a treaty that Africa has any real obligation under any international law. And who would give a damn about the international law since it was made by the colonialists anyway? You know? And so we must start thinking. And then for our traditionalists, and Mapanga, I'm pushing you to, if we have a sacred science, that's more powerful than the psychological chambers called religions from the West, then we better unite to use it now. It's time to bring forth our gods. If you don't want to call them gods, call them our energy. If you don't want to call them energy, call them our forces of nature.
Let's give them an educated name, IKS, Indigenous Knowledge Systems.
Okay, I love that one. Indigenous knowledge system need to show us how to produce an environment that can put someone to sleep without requiring the trigger of a gun. When we do that again, and they know our capability, but if they've got the best of our kings dancing in a church or a mosque, they got the best of our spiritual leaders in the village one day and the church the next day, they don't have to worry about our indigenous system, sacred system. But it is that system alone that will save us from the enemy in our own minds. It is that system alone that will save us. Look at what it has done. The COVID that should have wiped us out according to the world has barely touched us, but has wiped them out. They're poison. And so they have to say, oh, what is it that the African is doing? Let's force him to take our pills, our medicine, our shots. Let's tell Ghana, you can't let anybody in your country unless they take the shots. And so we will write your program. The American CIA will write your immigration program for you on how to give people visas. And Ghana, who was doing so good with an open door policy, has slammed this door in its people's face from around the world in its collaboration with the colonial emperor called America. And so we have to be honest and fair. Secret to life is to have no fear. I know there's no such thing as death. Let's be clear. This is something I want to address that I talked to Susan about early. And yet, Mapangu, you know, we don't call it down. Let it come on its own accords. You do not call it down. You let it come when it comes. Okay? When your mother and father gave birth to you, they gave birth to themselves. So you're not you are them as you going forward. And when you give birth to your children, you give birth to yourself. That's your grandparents, great-parents, great-parents, great-ancestors, going forward. We never end. We are life eternal. So you take this body away. What do you think is happening in the other 8 that my body produced, and the 23 that their bodies have already produced? and the 80 or 90 or 100 that those bodies would produce. If we keep the spirit of Africa's indigenous understanding of reality at the core of their being, you can't kill me because you can't kill anything. Science will tell you there's no such thing as death, except in the illusionary mind of Western religions to frighten the psychology of the weak and ignorant. You know? So let's come back to understanding simple, basic food, clothing, safety, and security for our people will only come when we make a decision to analyze things as Joshua was analyzing it, looking at what happens to the mineral ore when it comes out of the ground. Look at what happens to the cocoa when it's pulled out of the pod. When we put it on a barge and send it away and get no real fruits from it. We need to say the industry that will manufacture these things has to be in our land. And if we want to make some equitable arrangement based on our defense, we will say any 6-step process, the first 3-step process must happen in my land. Or the first 4-step, and then you can do the last 2-step process in your land. I'll show you an example. Bauxite, to get to aluminum, has a 6-step process. So you can do 3 steps in one land and 3 in the other. And both land would profit well, and their people would have work. But what's happening now, the bauxite is going on the ship as ore, and no steps is happening in our land, and that 6th step is happening to build manufacture in someone else's land. I'm going to have to take a second and take a phone call, so I'm going to remove myself just for 1 second.
That's right. Mapunga could continue. Yes, it's okay.
Maybe we need to mention something, right as the professor is mentioning, that every time trucks, ships are moving ore and raw materials from our land, they are moving away jobs. They are moving away industry. They are moving away factories. There is nothing wrong with our African leaders, business and political leaders, going to China, going to Europe, going to America, not to take pictures with other presidents, but going there to buy the technologies, to buy the factories, to buy the knowledge of how to create those first 3-4 steps of processing our raw materials. Because immediately you tell me that as a government, you are able to raise 500 million. I won't mention a country, 500 million, so that you can do a campaign to win elections. Instead of taking 500 million and walking up to China and buying a factory of how to process chrome, platinum, gold, copper, bauxite, tantalite, cobalt, and convert these minerals into industry. Mm-hmm. Why would the government be spending so much monies on flying around the world? 27 million. I mean, I won't mention a name again because he's a friend of mine. Within the past few months, the president has blown away 27 million already just on flights around greeting other presidents. Instead of taking that same amount of money and go to China, even if you are buying a factory for producing chairs, for argument's sake, or toothpicks, for crying out loud. You have the wood, so why not just make the toothpicks? For me, this idea is almost borders on insanity. That we pretend like we don't understand what happens when this thing is written in Hitler's eyes. This is where I say some stuff that people might not necessarily believe or understand. I believe in benevolent dictatorship. When a dictator knows what he wants and how to do it. When we elect you as a president into power, We assume that the way you are campaigning and the way you are talking, I will do this, I will do this. We believe and we hope that when you get there, you do it. Unfortunately, many of our presidents, when they get there, they get bogged down in constitutions, in policies, and they forget to deliver the very basic promises which they gave to their people. All it takes is violent leadership. That simply says, we will take the fiscus of our own budget. We are producing, whether it's maize or it's millet or it's rapoko in the country. We are not going to be sending it as raw material. We are going to start putting production lines. Production line. It takes a sacrifice, maybe 3 to 4 to 5 years to put these industries together. But because we are putting the industries where the raw materials are, I'm looking at iron ore, for example, in Zimbabwe, where all the cars in the world need iron in one way or the other. Are you telling me that up to now we can't produce a chassis of a car? A chassis of a car. Mm-hmm. Which simply means you just take clay mold.
It's an insult to our people. It's an insult to our ancestors. We have little boys from impoverished country coming over here pretending they're men and having us yielding at the feet of people who can't even get their confused gender straight when it comes to making decisions on hundreds of millions of people's lives. And we need to stop playing. If everybody's standing at the gate of the American embassy, the French embassy, hoping to get that 100 visas they're giving away that year, and that is our greatest aspiration, to go to their country and work like a maid and a slave and a security guard and come back home with a few new suits and pretending we've accomplished something, you know.
And rightfully so.
We got the same situation in the United States and the Caribbean. We leave the South, we leave the land, we leave the farms, we go to the cities, we work cleaning somebody's toilet, but we come back home driving a Cadillac. And people think we've achieved greatness. You know,
it can't be right, because when you go to the airport in the flights that are leaving Africa for Europe, and you see the amount of young faces that are disappearing into Europe, mm-hmm. and then you get to the European airport and you get to the Chinese airport and see the number of the Chinese and the Europeans that are flying into Africa to occupy the very same space that our young people are living. I mean, look at the Mediterranean saga that is consistently polluting my spirit, where our young boys and girls are drowning at sea, you know, trying to make it across the Mediterranean to have a good life across the road. Who said life is good across the road? Yes, it's good in the short term. But are you aware that the life that you're going to be looking for, the factory that you're going to be looking for across the road, the material for making that factory function is coming right underneath your house in your own backyard? How much education can we say we need as Africans to have spent 5-6 years at a university to get a degree, and your degree does not introduce you to your own raw material so that you can create jobs for yourselves?
No, your degree, we go to a university at home. We're fighting for this in America. But at home, should I fight? Should I have to fight to teach the history of my ancestors to my children? Do you realize the insanity of that? Should I have to fight to teach the experience that my ancestors underwent in the genocide that was wreaked upon us with the Gatling gun and the machine guns and the cannons and the poison gas of those who we now call our friends? Our children,
even the other more painful thing that I once mentioned this to Dr. Susan, when I said, if they thought that democracy is the best way of governance, then why did we fight for it?
Mm. No, it's very clear. Even if we just throw out the ideological labeling of it, the fundamental should be this. If it does not provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security in abundance for you and your people, it doesn't work. I don't care what you call it. It must provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security in abundance, in surplus, so you can share with others. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And we can see it doesn't work. This word, democracy, is an illusion. I live in America. This is not a democracy. This is an oligarch with a democratic illusion for the masses. The same wealthy families that run America today ran America 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, the same families, except now they call themselves corporations. Okay? These are the same families that control colonialism. Belgium may have sent the soldiers to Congo, but America, France, and Israel and Germany paid for the soldiers who went into Congo. They invested the money in Belgium to steal the raw materials. You know, we go to Cameroon. Yes, the British was there and the French was there, but all of the rest of the European world invested money in their being there. So they all shared in the robbing of Cameroon. They didn't care anything about the genocide they put in motion in Cameroon that goes on till this day. And they make us think we are caught up in ethnic warfare and tribalism when every bit of that was created and started by them. Started by them. And even today maintained secretly by them, and not so secretly in some case. The British funneled their money to this group. The French funneled their money to this group. The American intelligence network protect and help this group. And while all of this is gone, the British, the French, and the American corporations is taking the raw material of Cameroon out by plane and ships every day, while the people in Cameroon are still walking around without a pair of shoes on, envying some white woman or white man on TV who has a pair of shoes, when the shoes is made out of the leather from all of the cattle they took from your land to start with. We have to stop. We have to stop and think for 1 minute what freedom really feels like. Do I have to become a hologram of someone else to be free? Do I have to be a clone of someone else to be free? If the house that we live in that we call the bodies is only going to last for an average of 60 or 70 years and not for eternity, I got to have new houses to continue my journey as a living organism on earth, then I have to make sure I can provide for those institutions without having to beg with each generation. So our indigenous, what did you say, indigenous sacred system?
Indigenous knowledge systems, IKS.
Indigenous
knowledge systems. Indigenous knowledge systems.
Key curricula in every university in Africa, every high school in Africa, every middle school in Africa, every elementary school in Africa. That should be the foundation education.
I had an idea, Dr. Small, very small idea, that if I had power in my hands, I think I have power, let me not doubt. I think I'll do it, whereby we can firstly establish a knowledge of our environments as African children, be it in Zambia, be it in Angola. You study first your geography, you study your archaeology, you study your mineralogy, you study your fisheries, you study your land, a very top level subject that simply orients you to your geographical location as to what is it that we have in abundance on our land.
Right.
Correct.
Throughout the continent. Then what we do is that the universities must now prepare subjects that speak directly to the resources that are available, so that come the time of graduation, you are actually absorbed back into your community to add value to the minerals, the resources, the fisheries that you have. For me, it can be more complicated than that. It's a waste of time to be studying the snow in Russia when you have the sand in the Kalahari. So that our education is totally dysfunctional in that you have a copper mine in front of your house, but until you die, you don't even know how to work with the copper and make it into a mineral and be able to realize the full benefit of what is readily available at your doorstep. Therefore, our children study to run away from home instead of studying to quickly at graduation run back home and say, I have plenty of this at home. I am going to do this. I am going to process it like this. And this is the factor that I'm going to. And by the time you're coming from university, you have the network of other students from other fraternities, and you're able to build these beautiful cooperatives, which are able to add value.
That's the movement. That's the youth movement we need afoot on the continent. Not the argument about which brand of counterfeit democracy is going to be elected to office next year, and who's going to imitate the white man the best this time around. You know, we need to have a youth movement that's based on our indigenous knowledge, which was the mastery of our ecology and our cosmology. And now we don't even know that the light in the sky is called a sun, or that the sun does more and make you warm, because that whole body of knowledge is no longer a part of our way of life. And so I agree with you 100%, but where do we start? And the people who are listening to us, some sitting and being judgmental, and I'm gonna be hard on the people who are listening, because we're not entertainers. We're trying to give you instructions. You know, if you think Jesus can do, prove it. Have Jesus do it for us, and I will join you. If you think Allah can do it, have Allah do it, and I will join you. If you think Buddha can do it, have Buddha do it. I will join you. If you think any of these things that we've devoted our minds to submitting to, that our enemies have brought over the centuries, is going to free us, answer the question, why hasn't it done so? Why hasn't it done so?
I even passed a comment the other day, and I said, if Jesus promised the Israelites and the Jews Jerusalem, in all honesty, what has he?
Leave us alone.
What has he promised the African? What is in it for us? We are here fantasizing about doing pilgrimages to Mecca, pilgrimages to Jerusalem, you know, and you can't even make a pilgrimage to your own grandfather's grave. You can't even know what is important. And for me, this has become one of the most degrading concepts of humanity, where you even debase yourself to becoming a slave of the same God that colonized you.
What people fail to understand is that this religion is an ideological arm of the colonizers' politics. They're an ideological arm of the colonizers' politics, no matter which one it is. You know, you telling me that we were here for millions of years and didn't know God? We were here for millions of years and didn't have a way to show devotion and worship to the creation. We had to wait for a murderer, a genocide, and a rapist to hand us the tools to know the divine. That is the most ridiculous notion in the world. And we have to examine ourselves in the mirror that we look into every morning to see how ridiculous that notion is. That our mothers and fathers who loved us more than anything on earth did not give us a way to know reality. But our murderers and our rapists would give us a way to know reality. How foolish.
I passed a comment the other day. You can correct me, Dr. Small. When I said religion, particularly in the South, where we've interacted with Christianity, it has actually become a tool of managing African ambition and African anger. Now you cannot even get what belongs to you because the religion that you believe in says you can't do it. You must love your enemies. You must be smashed on one cheek, give away the other cheek. You have no abiding city here. You're going to go to heaven, leave the world and all its riches behind. God has riches for you in heaven. I mean, if God wanted us in heaven, what the hell did he put us in here on earth to do what?
Well, just look at it like this. Let's play history on the simple. In such a way, even after the great battle of Islamabad, when he had to face those cannons and those Gatling guns, and we lost thousands of Zulu people in one day, murdered. The banner, the Jack of Britain was in one hand, and the banner with the cross was in the other hand. For those who were pulling the triggers of the Gatling guns that was murdering the hundreds of thousands of Zulu people, injuring hundreds of thousands, murdering thousands, was bringing us that religion that we now hold sacred. That doesn't even make basic logic. It's not even basic logic. And so we have to re-examine, do we love our mothers and fathers, even by their standard? Honor your mother and your father that your day may be long upon the earth. Well, whose mother and father are you honoring? If you honor yours, it will tell you the book you just read that gave you those instructions is the book of your enemy and not of their mother and father who was murdered by those carrying that book. So we have to make common sense again.
Having done theology myself, I think somewhere in the book of Acts or the book of Acts 17 or Acts 19, where it says, it is God who placed us on the face of the earth and gave us spaces where each nation should live, so that each nation would seek for God, though he's not far away from any one of them. So at the end of the day, you don't have to wait for someone to give you a passport of importing.
All religions is the culture of its inventor. All religions is the culture of its inventor. None of the ones that is the dominant ones in Africa today was invented by Africans.
There you go.
It's as simple as that. So where's the one that my great mother and father invented? I want that. When I tried to practice that, my own brothers and sisters, who was carrying the banner of my parents' murderers, is laughing at me and saying I'm being foolish for loving my mother and father more than I love their murderers and rapists. That is so sad.
And the beautiful part about African spirituality, I don't want to call it a religion, it is that it has the economic value in it. It has the biological preservation in it. It has the ecological and preservation in terms of the community, environmental intelligence in it. It is a community in it. It is not about a person going to a church once a week to go and kneel in front of a wooden cross, but it becomes a daily expression, whether we're eating or we're drinking or we're dancing or we're bathing in the river or we are cutting a tree or we are killing a cow for food and etc. Spirituality we are marrying or we are burying. Anything that we are doing has a fundamental, intrinsic, spiritual expression to it. It allows us to live, not to die. It allows us to live.
Look at Japan. Japan, they said, has the healthiest nation in the world. Its people live longer than any people in the world. 90% of its people, if not 99, practice the Shinto, Japanese indigenous ancestral tradition, which is very much akin to ours in terms of intent and reality. If you go to any culture that is not an imperialist invader and a colonizer, the indigenous, their religion is tied to their ancestral indigeny. And it is their ancestral sacred science, which is their understanding of ecology and cosmology at that time, and explain to themselves in a way that they can live in harmony with one another, nature, and the rest of the universe. Westerners understand this very clearly. They've taken African sacred science and they now call it science. And if you just read the books of the Greeks and the Romans, which was plagiarized African works out of North Africa and Northeast Africa, And thanks to the Arab invasion, the Turks, primarily we call them Arabs, but the Turks and the Kurds who took over the Islamic system from the Arabs in the 8th century, they took our knowledge all over Europe. And it created the European Renaissance in science and music. And no one say where the Renaissance came from. First, you can only call it a rebirth. If you once had a birth, Europe had no birth in science before that. So what they call the Renaissance was not a renaissance, but a coming and awakening for the first time of Europe, thanks to the wisdom of Africa that Islam brought to your door, which the Greeks had tried to bring to your doorstep earlier. But history will erase the demon's mystery, and we will stop being so foolish about identity. Because true freedom is to be shackled to your identity. If you're shackled to someone else's identity, you're nothing more than a slave in chains, whether it's psychological chains, cultural chains, religious chains, or physical chains. If you're shackled to someone else's identity, you're in chain and you're a slave to them. Only being shackled to the identity of your own indigenous ancestry can you know freedom. Really.
And I think what you're saying, Professor, is very, very important. And I think this is the schizophrenic part of many of these religions we find ourselves trapped in. Because we tend not to understand the integral, intertwining integration of how spirituality converts itself into economics, converts itself into politics, converts itself into fashion, converts itself into music and art, converts itself into governance. Because at the end of the day, at the center of it is the quality of your spirituality will determine the society that you're going to build. As rightfully you say, that every religion it takes the form of the one who forms it. So if the Saudi Arabians would create their Islam around the Black Rock, you can be sure that the economy around the Black Rock will grow around the Black Rock. The economy of Jerusalem will grow around Jerusalem. The economy of the Vatican will grow around the Vatican. And the economy of Washington will grow around Washington. And if we can begin to say we want the economy of Zimbabwe, it must grow around the Great Zimbabwe. And it must grow around the Yoruba. It must grow around the Khoi and the San and the rest of the African tribes. And until we understand that the central part of our livelihood and societal construct is actually our spiritual expression, connectivity to the land, connectivity to the water, connectivity to the air, which speaks to the epistemologies of our total existence. The fragmented thought of we are going to create an economy without understanding the spirituality of that economy. We are going to get people educated without understanding the spirituality of that education. Then it becomes chaotic because you are going to produce a student who is not true to their ethnic grounding. You are going to produce an economist who does not understand and respect the ancestral ground and the value of preservation. So for me, spirituality actually becomes the central focus, because if before you dig a mineral, you are going to remember what you must do before you break the ground. If you are going to cut a tree, you are going to know what to do before you cut the tree. If you are going to draw water, you know what you must do beside the river before you draw the water. Then for me, the African spirituality actually has a preservative understanding, symbiotic relationship between the one who is alive and the one who has passed on.
Well, spirituality is your reality.
It is the reality. Wow, that's deep.
The Western spiritualism. Okay. And so when you say spirituality, then culture is the educational system of spirituality. The culture brings the value of your spiritual understanding to the masses, right? And it teaches you that cosmology and ecology and you have an integral partnership to maintain. When we look at what makes up our body, Does it not all come from the environment that we live in?
Thank you. Thank you.
We are the environment, you know. And our spiritual system in every corner of Africa spoke to that. And that's why they brought their religion in as an arm of their military. All of the missionaries came with the military conquerors. Because they
which makes the mercenaries.
Yes, mercenaries. And once they defeated us physically, they said, now you come and defeat them psychologically. And the first thing you must destroy is their relationship to their indigenous understanding of divinity itself. You see, you must destroy that. You must destroy their relationship to understanding that when I pour libation, I'm not pouring libation to some ancestors dead and gone. I'm pouring libation to the essence of the ancestor that is me. Because
that I live in here.
Before that ancestor died, it used a sperm and an egg, and it recreated itself as me.
That's why I always say that our ancestors are sleeping in the ground, but they are buried in our bones. They are buried in our bloodstream. They are alive and well.
Of course.
Their physical bodies could be there.
Every energy intonation that our ancestors exhibited when they gave birth to us was inculcated in our very DNA. And as they reared us as parents and grandparents, they, from the external places, inculcated even more of their maturity into us. And when those bodies that we, and I mean, listen to me well, when those bodies that we call ancestors, that we once possessed, was laid to return to nature, we went forward as them being ourselves. That understanding that there is no death and that you and the ancestors is one at different time in the evolution of that energy vibration.
Wow.
And no science can dispute me. No theology, unless it's fantasy, can dispute me. And this is African theology. You can look at the Yoruba, the Akan, the Zulu, the Xhosa, the Hausa. You will find the theology is the same, only language and ecology changes in terms of the explanation. You see? And that's why our indigeny is our salvation.
In fact, I passed a comment the other day where I said the most complex study which anyone can have, it is to study themselves.
Absolutely.
Because when you know yourself and you know where you are coming from and you know the DNA which you are made out of, the psychology, the culture you are made out of, the conquest of the past, the talents and the gifts that your ancestors had, the land that they had, when all those elements come alive, you may just discover who you are.
Yes.
And when you know who you are, you know your position in the society, and your mission is clear as to what is it that you must restore and what is it that you must throw away. And then we say in my culture, you cannot marry a woman until you have seen their grandfather's graves. Because until you know what killed your forefathers, you may never know what will kill yours.
Right. And to take it further, so people will understand without getting too esoteric, the reason our ancestors used the sun gives up all of this life-giving energy. Without it, we die. Each one of us in our ancient teachings is a sun. And there are occasions when the man is the sun. And it gives off this body knowledge, this energy, this understanding, this explanation, which is reflected by the moon, which is the woman. And she reflects that body knowledge to the children. Wow. Then there's occasions when the woman must imitate the sun. And the man becomes the moon and becomes the reflection of that body knowledge that is given to the community. The woman in African culture has always been the power. That's why she sits from Aset to now as the throne. She is the seat. She is the power. She gives the male the authority to act in nature. That's our culture. But we must grasp it, understand it, so we can truly re-implement it and reintroduce it.
What makes what you're saying very important in the backdrop of some of these new words that are coming onto the fore, words such as GBV, gender-based violence, women abuse,
those are
such
psychological problems that need some working, and I don't
yes, but
have time to work on them except to keep them out of our space. If we fight to bring nature back into the true relationship, everything else will have to follow.
That's exactly where I was going. That with the information you are sharing now, which has to do with the positioning of the family structure, whereby Christianity and Islam turns it upside down, it puts God, then it puts a man, then a woman is a byproduct, an afterthought of God, then it takes out of the rib of a woman, a man to make a woman, and etc. Then children at the bottom. But from what you're saying right now, which puts, for me, it makes a multitude of sense to say the woman is actually higher than the man. For me, I've always understood it that women are not even normal, so to speak. Women are cosmological. Even their periods and their cycles are not on the calendar on the wall. They are on the moon and its circulation. And a man is a servant of a woman. Because it is through the divine incarnation that a woman gives to the man that which a man cannot give to himself. So women in African culture, even the installation of kings, you can't install a king without his sister. You can't install a king without his mother. Women actually install the king.
The woman that gives the king the authority. One good system that's in place in the Ashanti Nation in Ghana, where you have a Santahene. The Santahene, who is the king of kings of the Ashanti Nation, gets to be king by birth of the sister of the former king. His children cannot become the king, only the sister's children. And since he has multiple sisters, we don't know which one is going to be king because they raise all of them to be king from all of the sisters. And only at the end of the day do the woman choose the one that has evolved to be the most suitable to be the king. And then she recommends that to the men to ensue.
In my village down in Zimbabwe, we do not trust the children of the son. We trust the children of the daughter because we don't know the father, but we know the womb.
Yeah.
We can guarantee this child was pregnant here and gave birth to a child here. So in a family, the child of the daughter is more respected because we know our daughter more than we can trust the child of the son because we don't know who could have slept with the woman in the midst of the son being away from home.
Yeah, the oldest book in the world that is known to the world to write about what we call theology is called the Pyramid Text. When the Africans lived in Egypt, and we called it Kem, the Black Land, which they got their word ham from. You see, we said Kam, they said ham, but it's our word. And so they, in that book, the Pyramid Text, there's no white people in Egypt then, just us. And in that
thank God they're not there.
And they will be gone soon again. The Nubian people fight every day with their spirit to return to the integrity of their institutions. But the institution is not a building, that's a replica. The institution is here. It is nature, it's cosmology. Anything else is just a replication. And the replication is there to give explanation, you see. And so when we come and read, let me just recite some of it. In the Pyramid Text, Amen, which means that which is hidden, but yet exists as power, says of itself, I create myself out of myself. I cause existence to exist so that existing might exist. And when I realized that I existed, Ma'at, the feminine factor was at my side. Okay. And that brought harmony, truth, harmony, balance, and reciprocity into being. And then I spat out Shu, the feminine energy that makes up the what we call the gases and the moisture and stuff in space. And then I called up Tefnut, the opposite, that makes the one that we call space. And they give birth to Nut, which is all of the planets and the elements, which is brought together by the gases and stuff and so forth that the God has created. And then Nut marries Geb, who's the earth. And then Geb and Nut, those elements that make up the sky and the gases and so forth, and Geb, those elements that make up the earth. So you got cosmology now, ecology. They come together according to our ancestors, and they created a Sar and a Set, man and woman. They take that story and make our Aset Eve and our Asar Adam. Without giving an explanation thousands and thousands and thousands of years later. But as he goes through the creation story, this is the African version that the European version comes out of. So he goes further, according to the literature of our ancestors, in the pyramid text. He said, I created everything that my heart desired. And having done so, I, Amen, expanded in all of it. Meaning everything that exists as an aspect of the divine. At the end of the dissertation of the pyramid text, Amen has now become Ra. He brings forth Ptah. Ptah is a mountain, a symbol of a mountain, but it represents solid matter. And then he brings forth Ra, the sun, which represents energy, matter. And then he looks back at the source. He says, but I, the God of God that created everything and expanded everything, I came from my mother, Nun, which is liquid matter, which is called the primordial word of Nun. That's liquid matter. So that whole book is a discussion on quantum physics. This is 50,000 years ago in Africa. But
in Shona, just to pounce back on the Ma'at, in Shona, when we say let us pray, we say kuna mata, kuna ma'at, which means we are going back to Ma'at.
Yes.
You cannot pray when you are not in harmony. You cannot say you are praying and you are not in harmony with yourself, with nature, with those that are around you. And unfortunately, in the modern Christian space, they just say, let's pray. And they are saying, let's pray, and they're not even talking to each other. But when you look at this inner depth, which actually says, prayer must be inculcated and birthed out of harmony. And kunamata, kunamaat, we are going back to ma'at. We are in balance, and therefore we can make requests.
And all of our culture speaks to that. And the Igbo, they say omanele. You must have omanele. You must have harmony and balance within and without. In the Yoruba, they say iwapili, the gentle character which comes from harmony and balance within and without. Every one of our cultures speaks to the necessity of that in order to be in your wholeness with what we call divinity. And in the divinity, it's like the Eve, I love their term. They call it Sobe Lisa. The totality of creation itself is divinity, not an aspect of it. The totality of creation itself is divinity. And we are simply an expression of an aspect of that totality, which means we have the possibility of the totality in all that we are able to do. That's why a return to an indigenous African sacred science is essential for freedom for African people.
It frees us. And I think one of the last freedoms, which should be the first freedom, is the divinity freedom. Freedom to live, freedom to connect, freedom to quote unquote worship, freedom to express, freedom to pour waters on the ground, freedom to connect with nature, freedom to communicate within ourselves, without ourselves. And I think if there is anything that scares the white man, it is that the black man and the black woman have capacity to live outside of the system without them. I read a book once on African indigenous knowledge. I think it was by Dr. Mbiti, where they commented that you need to remove, you need to remove the drums away from African worship services, because these drums may just cause them to connect with their spirits, and when they get there, we may not know what to do with them.
Yeah, well, there was a good book also that people can go to. This one is written, it's in French. It's written by Dr. Nyangora Burha. He's an ancestor now from Cote d'Ivoire. It's called Drumology. And he tells the story of a little boy whose father is a great master drummer. See, there's drummers and drummers. There are drummers who play drums and for music and entertainment, and that's one rhythmic form. There are drums who are there for the purpose of healing, because every organ in your body have its own vibration, so you can create a drum vibration to match the organ's vibration to restore its integrity when it's out of cue. Then you have the drums that speak to the spirit, the talking drums. And one must study about 40 to 42 years before you can even play in public. And then you have the drums that is the tape recording of our history. We have not lost our history. It is in the rhythm of the drum of the indigenous stools across Africa. And each of the great drummers have a segment of our history. To change one note of that history can cause their life, and they're done. But it tells a story about how the little boy, whose parents take him in the woods to meet the tree that's going to be his drum, and how he helped nurture that tree and watch the tree grow. And then they take him to meet a baby monkey who he will become friend with, because that will become the skin for his drum when he becomes a man. And so him, the monkey, and the tree live a relationship. And when the time comes, the tree is cut and hollowed and the drum is prepared. And the monkey is killed and eaten and the skin is used. And the vibration and the rhythm that they develop together, the three of them, and growing up together. Now the institution that creates the universal vibration that's handed down by the master drummers, so that we will never forget note of the history of our ancestry. When we go indigeny, then true freedom will come. Because we wouldn't have to argue about who's our enemy and who's our friend. We'll know who our enemies are. We know who our friends are.
This is so powerful. This is so powerful. I mean, I'm so sorry I have to interrupt, because I just picked some of the words and I tried to type it in but this is so powerful. This is the day. Like I said, this is the day, this is the time. So probably we're going to go back to where we started by just saying, we just go back to learning, like you said, the pyramid text. And we know, okay, this is our mission, this is our business, just to learn this, because that's the freedom.
Sister Susan, because a lot of times and I do it to refer to Egypt and Kemet. It is not our oldest civilization. It is just one of our most physically preserved civilization. If I want to find the oldest civilization, I've got to go to the Sand people. I got to go to Southern Africa. I got to go to the corners of Ethiopia. I got to go to Somalia to find the old civilization that gave birth to Egypt. Egypt had a mother and a father, and it came from the South and Central and from the West.
When I was talking to Jaja in Uganda, one of the old ancient fathers there, he actually educated me that the Egyptian Kemetic civilization is number 4 or number 5 on the list, because the first one are the hunters and the gatherers. That speaks to the Khoisan and the Aborigines. Then the next group were the what did he call them? The water people, the fishermen, and etc. Then the other group were the Abyssinians, who are the Ethiopians. Then the other group were the builders and the masons. That's where the Egyptian and Kemet comes in, and then so on, so forth. I can just try and look for those notes somewhere there, but actually the Egyptian, yeah.
There's one you miss, and it is the in Ghana they're called the little people. In Ghana, people still think they're mythology, but I've been in their arms. I've embraced them. My mother, Nana Fuasa, who taught me so much and who still teaches me, she was raised by the Motias.
Motias.
We call them pygmies in some place.
Yes.
Motias in some place. But they still live in Africa, and people still act like they're not myth people. The Motias are real. They're some of the most psycho-spiritual people on the planet Earth. And they love staying in the forest. Their villages are all deep. Even in Kumasi, you have to go out of Kumasi deep into the forest to get to them. But when they love you, they take care of you. And they can teach you across space and time the things they want you to know. I don't want to...
In the South,
there is a truth that is African. You know, there's a truth that is African that you must, if you want to be free, you must reconnect yourself to. Sorry.
In the South, just to leech on, I enjoyed the presentation on the drum, the relationship of the monkey, the tree, and the young boy. Now that's deep. By the time you come to the South, they call it ngoma. They call it ngoma, which is Ngoma. Ngoma. That's the name for the drum. Now, when you use ngoma, it is the drum, but ngoma is a song. The song is ngoma. Then ubungoma, it is the art of healing with a song. Then sangoma is the one who plays the drum to heal the one whose vibration is out of sync. So you find out this whole concept of ngoma, ubungoma, sangoma. So when they see you dressed up like this, for example, some of this African thing, those Christian people, the first thing they say, you are a sangoma, because it has been relegated now to be a derogative word that talks about voodoo and etc. But all being equal, the very word itself says sangoma is the one who heals the vibrations through the song.
And each of us have a rhythm. We don't even know it. In the old days, when a woman thought of the child she wants to give birth to, not when she got pregnant, but when in her mind she was old enough to think, I want to be a mother and I want to birth this child. The elder ladies in the house and in the community would begin to sing that child's song.
Yes.
To that woman. And when that woman's belly got full, they would sing the song to the child in the belly. And when the child was born, they would sing the song to the child. And then the child introduced to the community would sing the song. So anybody that child went into the community, if he was running and fell down, some elder would come and sing his song to him, say, no, I can get up and I can continue to run. Because his vibration has been re-stimulated. And
Doc,
go ahead.
I have good news. I have good news for you, Doctor. 2 weeks ago, I was in Namibia, and the tribe in Namibia called the Himba people, they still practice that habit, but only the variation in the South is that the woman will go and sit under a tree and will listen to the song until she hears the song.
Yes.
When she comes home, she will sing the song to the husband as they make the baby, And then the rest is history. All throughout the life of that child, that song becomes actually their ID. Yeah.
And we are all vibrations. And even when we forgot why we did, let me show you an example. In the Christian church, I grew up in the South Carolina of the US. When we were all 13 years in my village, and I grew up in an African village, not really that different from yours, believe it or not, even in how we structured our houses. At 13, all of us were rounded up, the 13-year-olds, and we were brought to the church. And we had to pick a church father, the boys. I remember I picked Mr. Sam Keith, Deacon Sam Keith. Then the girls picked the church mother. Then for that whole year, the girls were taught separate by the women and the mothers they picked. And then the boys were taught by the mothers they picked. Your parents were there, but they didn't have the same authority in this teaching as these elders. At the end of the year, we were brought to the moaning bench, they called it. And you got on your knees and you closed your eyes. And each family had to sing their song for that child, over that child, so that the child can get possessed. Okay. Only if you get possessed could you be welcomed into the community as an adult. And so every family worked hard to make sure. And I remember my song. I remember my rhythm. I'm not going to tell you, you're not supposed to give you a rhythm and your song away. But I remember my song and I remember my rhythm. And sometimes when I get real lonely, I sing it. So
you can share it with me and I can convert it into music. Yeah.
Okay. And my family would sing. And when I got up and I didn't know where I was. You know, you become possessed with an energy greater than you. And in turn, everybody, you had 7 days to be captured by the energy. And when I got initiated in the Yoruba tradition into the priesthood, I had to go in the bush in a hut and lay on that hard ground. Oh, you don't know how painful the ground can be because it pulls out of you all of the negative things. When you're laying there for that 7 days, then I recalled what they did to me when I was a child at 13. I said, wow, it's not that different. We took what we could survive with in America, you know? But I'm saying to our people who are listening to us, we have a culture. And it's universally African. We don't have a bunch of cultures. We have one culture. But ecology dictates how it is fashioned. Because if I'm in the desert, I can't fashion a culture based on the tools of the rainforest. And if in the rainforest, I can't fashion a culture based on the tools of the desert. And if I'm in the savannah, I can't fashion a culture based on the mountains. But yet, the knowledge, the body of knowledge that I'm using the tools to fashion is universal. Cosmology, ecology, and the human interaction and relationship to the two. So we have a culture, and that culture is the educational system of our spiritual sacred science understanding of ecology and cosmology. See? And
our culture is our library, because out of our culture comes our art. And the preservation of every civilization after the civilization is gone is art.
Yes.
Because in as much as we don't have books, we actually have pieces of art. And within them is encoded volumes and volumes of work. Like this particular one I have on my head today, which is used by the tribes of the monkeys, the Nkata, they call it Nkata, which is actually a cosmology, a ring around the mind, representing the world above as it interacts with the world within. It is a ring of time and how the human body must constantly be in touch with the greater cosmos out there. And you would spend years to unpack a black man sitting
They know
between two pillars with a moon between him, and this thing around his head, studying the movement of the sea, the winds, the color of the moon, and etc., to be able to interpret huge volumes of information, which you may spend all your years studying that in cosmology, but our ancestors just put all this information into pieces of art. And if you don't know what they represent, you may think they're just artifacts. But in fact, they are a storeroom of a great volume of knowledge systems.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but that's that's the university that needs to be restored, right? That's the university that we need to bring back. And that's what our people really, I was looking for something to show you how we retained it in the West. And I was just traveling. So if you ever see the beads that we wear on this side when we are initiated, and they don't wear the same beads or as many at home because they don't have to. When we got here, we were trying to figure out how do we retain. They won't let us use our drums. They won't let us speak our language. They won't let us practice our tradition overtly. So how do we hide them? Let me show you what we did. I'll take some, if Shango would not mind, I'll take some from Shango. And these beads, each one is an institution. Each one is a university of cosmological understanding of values, interests, and principle that makes up the society that Africans build. You know, like I was looking for, because I was away and I was speaking, so I had them with me, and I was trying to show the people when I wear Shango, and I've explained it on this one before. When they say, "Oh, Shango is the king, he's the Alapin." Yes, it's a story of the history metaphorically, but it's a story of a value system that a king should possess in his character to be a good king, wherever he's at in the world. And then it tells in the folklore how Shango, in that bead which is red and white, commits a crime against the integrity of the office of the Alafin. Yes, because he lets ego take him over. He let arrogance take him over. He let greed take him over. And in that metaphor, he gets his two brothers to fight to the death, promising one much wealth. When one kills the other, then he suddenly realizes, oh my God, I've murdered my own brother. I'm totally unworthy of being the king. So he runs away and he commits suicide. And we say, Obakoso, the king is not dead. The king is not dead because Oya, the princess of the forest, the guardian of the gateway to the ancestral realm, the gateway to the cemetery, the wind, she cuts him down. What died was arrogance. What died was ego. What died was envy. What died was jealousy, you see. And so now this new life is formed. But Oya, the beautiful feminine principle that represents change and process, as the king is now moving from the negative to the positive quality, attribute, character, she marries another man and practices polyandry. Ogun, the god of iron, the god of war. But why that? Because if you take the god of iron, he has to take a piece, as we were talking early, he has to take the iron ore, put it in fire, burn out the impurities in order to come up with the steel. So he's the beautiful metaphor to explain the transforming of the human character from negative to positive. And so he then represents in the human evolution transformation as a result of having undergone change based on the body of knowledge of the ancestors, because the guardian of the gateway to the cemetery means you guard the wealth of the ancestors, which is their body wisdom. You see, that's just three beads. And that's just part of the stories of three of those beads. And that's how we kept our history safe in Americas.
Yeah. Wow.
While they laugh,
All of that.
oh, they like beads. Let's buy them beads every week. They didn't.
But by the time you come to the south and you begin to look around the beads, it becomes a library of the dietary system. Because when you look at the vegetation, you can actually eat from there. And once you go for diet, number two, the beads will be speaking to wisdom, and they also speak to the medicine.
We have them all.
The medicines that are in the bush, also the plants have those various colors. And if you look at them, the stars are there, cosmology is there, mineralogy is there, and women also use them for managing their menstrual cycles, so that they could count the beads around your waistline. Then you know when to start, when is the red, when is the green for ovulation, when is the orange, and so it became a timetable. It became a health system. It was a healing center. It was basically it was a culmination of the cultural knowledge systems put in an artifact, like a ring, like a necklace, like a beadwork around your waistline, and ultimately like a hat on your head.
I had to take the phone again because that's my wife, right?
Okay.
No problem.
When she calls, you got to answer the phone no matter what you're doing, because we are old people now, so we can't climb the stairs at the train station anymore. So I pick her up at a certain time.
My art is calling. My art is calling.
My art.
My
The
knee
power,
is aching
the
today. Yeah, my knee is aching today. So could you pick me? So, but I still have about 40 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but my father is here. My father is here. I brought you with him from the farm. So I thought I would do an hour, 10, 20 minutes. I've done an hour, 30 minutes. So I don't know if it is okay that we can, I will not close the meeting, but you can allow me to round up, and I can make sure that he rests for the night. He has been on the transport for the past 6 hours.
I can sit and talk with you, my dear king, all year. Because our people have to understand that Africa is real. We cannot continue to be a clone or a hologram of Europe or Asia. We have our own essence. We have our own foundation. We have our own histology. We have our own psychology. We have our own spiritual construct. We have our own worldview of the universe and of nature. And someone has smothered that with their weapons for centuries. And we're now throwing the cloak of their missionary, mercenary colonialists off of our minds so we can be reintroduced to ourselves when we were our ancestors. So that we can be reintroduced to ourselves when we were our ancestors. That is the only way we can rebirth African consciousness again. But they're not.
Wow. Wow.
So last word, King Maponga, before you leave us, since you're but just round up, because we're going to catch up again on this. I officially want to announce, because people that have always been asking, from this moment, I mean, we're agreeing that Professor James Small, you see the knowledge from the diaspora and the knowledge from the continent. That's why I said we have the two royals, the two pillars, out a brother and a junior brother, the elder one that was taken away, and the junior one that stayed on the continent in the royal, now are connecting to bring that. So we're going to do this often. This is the beginning of our, what we say, our freedom, by knowing who we are, going back to the essence, like taking the pyramid text or connecting King Maponga and the wisdom that he's going around and I mean, harvesting, like I could say. And we're going to start exactly what we promised ourselves here 2 years ago, to start this schematic, knowledge of who we are from the origins. So make sure that you've clicked and subscribe and get your notification, because as you have seen, we don't announce our kings again when they come live. We're not announcing anybody again. If you want to be a part of the process, like we say, now is the time to mobilize. We already started it 2 years ago, you know, to hand over this wisdom. Make sure you clicked and subscribe. And you don't owe me anything. I don't owe you anything. King Maponga already told you here. He has given Queen Nana Efwa the authority to run his platform. So when you see us get the jingle, it means something is around the corner. So please make sure you are. I want to give the word to King Maponga before he goes, now that we know we don't have time, but it's going to be, I'm not even going to tell you the intervals that both of them would come to teach us. And some other courses will have to do it privately, and you would have to register and subscribe before you can even get access, because we're getting real. We're getting on the track. We don't want to hear anybody here that would tap even into our knowledge and then go after our kings. No, they are under every security and every protection from us, the mothers, the queens, the goddess. And so we are saying, if you want to be a part of this process, to be free, you to be free, and you want to get the keys to get that freedom, you would have to start, you know, making sure you make time for these kings. And we're not going to be doing it for free. This is an introduction and everything. We know what we are going to chew for you, the public, because most of you now, we don't even trust ourselves anymore. But we are going to get into the space where you get professional knowledge and wisdom of freedom. And you have to register, you have to pay. You have to pay for your freedom. You have to pay so that we preserve our kings. You have to pay even just to get access to that knowledge. How many years we study in universities and take credit and take loans from banks to study what is not even useful to us. And when it comes to our professors, our lecturers, our scholars, we just want everything for free. I'm so sorry to tell you this. Don't get disappointed. But we are putting in this structure. We had said it before, and we are not going to expose this kind of science of, you know, our science of knowledge just like that, just for free, just on social media and just for this. No. So the Kemetic educational system and knowledge of the indigenous African systems that we speak in, the IKS, is officially going into space as from next month. And you would have to register to get the elder brother and the younger brother connected to unveil and to unlock this process for us. Because I think, like Prof has been saying, we are not entertainers. And I think we get it a lot of time. This is not an entertainment platform. We don't come here to play music or to just romance you. Yes. Look at Baba Maponga on the street day and night. I call him to find out how is the queen doing and the children. And he barely accompanies them, and they are off, and he is on the work to get the knowledge from the elders to teach us. Please, no way, no freedom without investment. You have to invest to be free, you to be free. And I just wanted to make it clear, and I want them to support or to confirm what I'm saying. Is not like I'm making something. I asked Baba Maponga first.
Okay, I wish to explain two words to everybody in the house. Word number one is secret. Word number two is sacred. Secret and sacred. Now, many people think that African knowledge systems are secretive. No, they are sacred. Our defined secret is when you hide information from someone for some reason that is best known to you. Either you think they are not ready to receive it or it may compromise you. But sacred, you only reveal information to the one who wants to experience it, and it is relevant to them for their own growth as a custodian that they can pass it on to the next generation without contamination. So we are not here to be sharing secrets of African knowledge systems. I think we are here at calling you into a sacred space so that you don't come for entertainment. So we don't share sacred information about circumcision. No, because you must experience it. we don't share information, for example, about what we do in certain ceremonies, because you don't need that information if you are not going to practice it. So sharing sacred information is a calling into experience, preservation, and continuity with the vulnerability and the serenity that it deserves. I thank you.
Thank you so very much, Baba. No, I just wanted to make a point very clear. Like, we have to stress this again often. And like I said, I told you on the Pan-African Daily, all of you, my viewers and followers and this big family, there's not going to be anything for free. We have seen our prophets die in poverty, serving us, giving their lives for us. But we take the money and the wisdom that they're giving to you, you go and give to the church and make prophets or other what you call whatever, man of God, rich. That will not happen again. That is not happening anytime. So watch out for this link. We'll be dropping it in July. July is the official link to get access to what we call, I don't want to call master classes. We're calling the kings classes, the royals. If you want freedom, freedom has a price. You have to pay. When you pay, it means I am ready to be free. Okay, not what we just give and just exercise and every other person. And at the end of the day, when we don't have our elders, we begin to run and collect and beg for donations. It is a shame. Honestly, it is a disgrace. All our freedom fighters, all our scholars. Professor James has been on this trip for 60, 70 years, all gray with the family. Okay, you can imagine the process when they sit here to speak. And the other day we had his junior brother telling us, I know I will not live long. And we say, no, you're going to live long. Why? Because we don't protect. We don't invest money. We don't. We take the money. We enjoy everything here. We enjoy it. And then we go and give it as donation where it doesn't bring us anything. We pay to be slaves. We pay to be enslaved. We pay to be humble. We pay to be loyal. We pay to be fruitful. We pay to be killed, as a matter of fact. Whether it's spiritual death or physical, all that is going to stop. Number two, you people always sending messages. Oh, can you host me? Can you do this? It's not going to be for free. You know why? Because we've just learned, we have researched with all the professors and our scholars that we only get what we pay for. But if it gets to, we come and enjoy the music, like Prof was saying, it's not entertainment. We come and we enjoy. Oh, when is he coming back? When are we going to get Professor PLO Lumumba? When are we going to get Mama Arikana? When are we going to? No, we're not going to get anybody here. We're extra kings and warriors classes of freedom and liberation, how you can become an African again, and it is payable. And I can already guarantee you it's not cheap. It's not going to be cheap. Okay, you're going to sign up a year and put that money there, and you can get the number of classes at it says. Like I said, we give the monies always at things that don't benefit us. If we look at your educational period, only to end up being jobless, only to end up being not knowing who you are and the freedom of who you are. It's a whole mess. And we say fixing, and we enjoy them coming here. Oh yes, or you know, when is he coming? And for real, we get paid to be killed. We invest money to get killed. We invest money to stay dumb. We invest money in short to remain poor. I don't know how I can say it again. I'm so sorry for my French, but it's not being emotional. It is the fact. We have noticed for 2 years, free lectures from professor, always staying here, bringing the babies, whether it's Professor James or PLO or Maponga or King Bongane, all Mama Bello, all are just selfless for how many years? It cannot work again. So the Pan-African Daily is coming up with that. You need to be a member to this club. If you want us to be entertaining you, we have enough videos that we have given you free lectures, but now we're getting into the core of it. You want to be free? You have to deserve the freedom. And I know only when you really said, I'm here, then I will get it. So we would be getting down to you as soon as possible. Like I said, everything is getting ready. You see, Baba is sitting here, has to go and pick up the wife. He's tired. All of us are tired. No way anymore. Professor James. Baba James, I said, no way that you are going to be working for free. You're the Macomba and all of us that have been on this. It's over. There's no more free freedom.
And what we do, it can't be paid for. So we must just do to help us being able to continue to do. The knowledge that we just gave you a little bit of, just a tiny bit of today, is yours. And I don't think anyone would object paying to have those who would bring the sacred science to them so that you can manage your life, so that you can really manage your male-female relationship and not just guess that your female-male relationship, when you're trying to build a family, shouldn't just be based on passion and sex, but based on something deeper, where passion and sex become the reward for the something deeper, you see, that you have, that brings you together as not just one individual, but representative of nations, because each of you come from millions of different ancestors, and you're now bringing those millions of ancestors together as one, and they have a relationship with the living community that you're a part of. Being an African isn't just a label. It's not just a title. It's not just a name. It's a way of being human.
Yes.
It's a way of being human. They've shattered that, and we have to reconstruct it now, give birth to it again. And only we can give birth to humanity, because all humanity are mutations off of the African genes. The others can't give birth to anything ethical, moral, principle, or human. They can only do what they're doing, create the violence and the crime and the hate and the stealing and the conquest under all kinds of guise. Only we can restore the human beingness to the world. That'd be worthy of saying something, have a relationship with divinity. You know, that's our culture. Our culture is a culture of godness itself.
Prof, I'm saying this because, I mean, we have suffered this for too long, and I think we are not disabled, we are not incapacitated to actually really put our monies into what matters.
Yes, and we must do it. We must support this educational forum that we are creating. It is an educational forum that will allow you to restore yourself. It doesn't mean you don't get a medical degree or law degree or an education degree or ecology degree. All of those things are still part of the tools you need to make your world work. But what you need more than you need the tools is yourself. A restoration of African consciousness, a rebirthing of African consciousness will allow you to use those other tools in the most appropriate way. And it is worth paying for.
It is, because when I look at how they take public speakers out there for 30, 44, 45 minutes just to say something that would not even benefit you, and they pay them $15,000, $20,000 for 45 minutes to just talk crap. Of course, I'm sorry for my French. It's not crap for whoever. And you see the tickets, $500, $600 that people are paying just to sit for someone to tell you who you even are not. So imagine that freedom, and it's a liberation from our poverty. Because if I know who I am, I know what I can create, then I would begin to know this is the CEO, the entrepreneurs, the billionaires that we are creating. But first, you can get every other degree. That's why we remain always as job seekers. Whether you're a scientist or astronaut, we're always working under someone else. And how do we think that we can be free? Because we don't have our own knowledge. And I think it's not going to happen. We have given you the freedom. We have given you the free space. Thank you also for keeping it. But now we're stepping to another level. I'm not saying that Pan-African Daily is not going to be hosted. I will still sit here. We're training our young executives and stuff, but we're creating this indigenous applied knowledge of the African secret science of who we are. And that's a spatial forum. You need to register. You need to pay an annual fee to become a part. And after every studies, you're going to get your certifications as well. And they're going to be not just theory, they're going to be workshops on the continent in the diaspora with rituals, rebirth, and everything. It's a complete whole science of what we're supposed. So now we're saying, oh, please teach the young people, or do this, or how to create their own jobs, how to do this. How do we manage a system where your minds are not owned by you and you expect to make money? Yeah. We have tried. The ones gone before have tried. It doesn't function. The only thing that functions is education. And that's what we want to give you so that you can be free and enjoy your wealth, your continent, create, innovate, everything, sell to all of us, and then you can be billionaires.
Right. But what we want to do, Susan, we want to make Africa more than a label.
Yes.
More than a hashtag. Africa must become your identity, and you must know what that identity is. Right now, we think because we came from the continent, we were born there, I'm African. No, white people born there, Asian people born there, Chinese people born there, they're not Africans, and you would never call them African. So what makes you African? Just being born there, you see? And so you have to realize there's something that must be born in you, awoken in you, that is about you, that I think one of our brothers from Nigeria, he wrote a book on it. It's called, and everybody should find this book, it's called The Rebirthing of African Consciousness. How do we again give birth to the consciousness that gave birth to the universe itself, you see? That's what African consciousness is. It's not an aside. It's not a party. It's not entertainment. Entertainment and parties are used to teach aspects of our cultural understanding. But African culture gave birth to the universe itself. That's what they've shattered. That's what they've broken. That's what they've forbidden. And that's what they've taken away. And we want to restore it. And that's what we're going to be paying for. True freedom is to be shackled to your authentic indigenous identity. Your authentic indigenous African identity. That's true freedom. And then you can get all the learning tools in the world and make your heaven on earth.
Ashe. Thank you so much. We're also going to be getting authors with Indigenous. I mean, you know, we're going to be doing book sales. You also said that, Professor James. Yeah, someone is saying you need to go and get your goddess. Just let us know. We're rounding up, but I was just throwing out the information that needed to be given.
I'm watching the time, so I'll have to leave soon because I have to drive for about 30 minutes to get there.
Ashe, Baba. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. It's good to be back. And tell everyone my knee is working very well. I have a new titanium knee, right out of the Congo, and it's working very well. No more pain.
Thank you. Thank you. Made out of Congo, of course. That's your bones. That's your ancestors.
Okay. So peace and blessings. Peace and blessings, everyone.
Thank you so very much, Pa. Thank you, Baba. Greetings to the goddess. Wow. Thank you also for watching. I think we're rounding up. It was good. It was nice to say it. So once the curriculum and the start of this forum is ready, you know, because we're just waiting on Baba Maponga because he's still on the trip in Namibia. And when he settles down home, we're going to do the official kick-up. But you get the links. You can start registering. Like I say, please just try saving your money and to liberate yourself. Freedom is a whole process. honestly, I went through their biographies. I went through their lives. I've been through to do a research of each of every one of our professors that have been here. To be honest with you, it's a mess. It's a disgrace. It's a shame how we exploit our own, and we are not able. We are not able. They come and they're begging for donations. All their works is always they're the underpaid. They have to go and look for other jobs and then come and sit to teach us. Come and give me a break. I mean, it doesn't function. Like I said, it's like we exploit our own. We just want to listen, just want to see them, and just want to hear them, enjoy them until they're weeping, they're bleeding, and say, I'm going to be killed. What am I even going to leave as a legacy for my children? For giving up my life, for dying just to save humanity. People, freedom has a price. Just like you hear all the peace here, peace here is the most expensive goods in life, in value. Freedom, peace. That's why war also has its own tools. Okay? So you either buy a gun and kill, or you do a peace conference and send your peace corps and whatever. They're going to sit on a negotiation. These are huge amounts of budgets. Look at each small university. Just look at even a small church. A small church that a pastor that has not even studied theology opens a church. They begin to fly private jets. What about our scholars? What about Black scholars that are bringing us indigenous knowledge? We're not able to afford for their lectures. It will never happen again. It's not going to happen. So yes, we're going to drink water and mind our own business. We have a lot of authors. What books do we read? They keep writing and writing and writing. We don't buy. And we want freedom. Freedom has a price, people. Freedom means you have your book and you go to school, you listen who you are, you come back, you do the practicals, a combination of theory, the books that are going to be prescribed, and the workshop. Everything payable. Get ready to take credit, invest in your life, and be free for once and build the legacy of the Africa that we want. I want to thank you so very much for paying attention. And like I said, yes, we're going to get it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Grant. You say we're all here. And thank you, everyone. Watch out for the curriculum. They'll be coming up to tell you about the curriculum, but it's going to be once in a month or however, but it's topic per topic, from family to womanhood. You women, you just heard Prof. They drop only a piece, just a little piece. The power in you, Black goddess, the creator, the ability for you to speak and things happen. Just say it and it happens. But if you don't have the key to uncode this power, how do you know it? These are all royals. We have queens also that are working on them and they have that key. But we cannot always take our people for granted. They are begging for donations. And we go and invest our money, take credit in places that do not keep putting always our monies to get cured, to get our brains dumb and dumb and dumb. We pay even to be stupid, to buy stupidness. Okay. Yes, we are taking it to the next level. And I want to congratulate you. Please watch out for our, who is coming up. I heard a question, when is Professor PLO coming up? To be honest with you, those are our royal world-class teachers. They would never come here again to share, this kind of information and connecting to us. Yes, fine. But look at their ages. Look at what they've worked for. Look at the gift that they've been given to us. And we will sit here and it's like romancing and entertaining and just see them. And we're happy that we can connect and we can call and we can even ask for their numbers. Which generation does that? Ask the Chinese children. They're the youngest ones are billionaires. But if you look at the hierarchy, they don't even move an inch. And when we speak to our elders, how do we respect? Because we've been taught wrongly. We don't even know the distance of respect. We don't even have a clue. Because we were not taught that way. We have to unlearn everything and to learn that culture, to sit and listen and learn and progress. Thank you so very much. I bless your day today. Yes, exactly. YouTube identity say pain to be stupid. Yes, buying stupidity, crap all the time. And we keep doing it and even initiate our own children to continue to pay and say, no, I ask myself, how could you have a business as an African and you send your child to school to learn to go and work for someone else? Something is not adding up. How could our parents, our ancestors have worked and built institution? I don't even know why they sent us to say, go and study in Harvard, in Yale's and this and that, and bring what? But the first ones that came, they came back just with their suitcases. You know it. They came back with suitcases. And that's a program that we're going to talk about. When they came just for knowledge, they went back just with their certificate because everything that they had was here. But today, what do we come? We come and then we start sending all the trash, the rubbish on European street. We package them and send it back to our people. That's how stupid we buy stupidity. That's how stupid we buy stupidity, and we pay to send trash to our people, damage our clothing industry. With used clothes of dead people, and say we are expanding the market. I want to survive. And at the end of the day, all of us are broke. When we die here, people have to gather to collect money to send us. But when we were walking in the diaspora and everybody looked at us like we're happy, like we are able, that we are saving, that we're doing business, we're acting and just pretending we're doing some serious business. Until when things happen, then we start calling for donation. Oh, we have to support this and this and that. Stop it. Buy your freedom and be free because you own it. They were not created, the Caucasians were not created differently from us, but they just learn discipline, learn where to put their money in their own very sources. And then we begin to say, oh, white privilege. Nothing. Black privilege this time. Invest in your knowledge and your education, and you're going to be free. And you're going to see how much you're going to write all made by Africans. Like he said, it's not a label. Africa is not a label. It's you. It's the owner. And so each time when we cry like babies, like I said, oh, they take our minerals. Oh, they take our this. I just like shut down the world. We had said this. Let Africa just shut down the world and let's mind our business. We will create. We will think how to exploit the minerals. We would buy it. Just shut down everything. Let's just shut down Africa for 2-3 years and just say shut to the world. We will drink water and survive. Let's drink water and survive. Because I think when we shut down the whole thing, shut down all the antennas, the satellite, we're not seeing anything. We're not learning anything. To be honest with you, we're going to be the best version of ourselves. But let's start. So this forum of education is shutting down every other thing that I was taught. They're going to be authors with incredible, do you know, what are we talking about? The best scholars and psychologists in the world. Who do we learn from? Thank you, people. Bye-bye. We see us tomorrow. Good night. And I think we have come to the end of our show. Like I said, if you just made the mistake I call it a mistake. If you are here and you made the mistake not to subscribe and click the notification button. For me, the notification button is the most. And you want to get this freedom, even to get access to information on how to even register. If you're not subscribed, you're not clicking your notification. Because right now, I told you, we're not doing no flyers again. We're not announcing anything. You see today, did I announce Maponga was coming live? Of course I did. But Small's one. I had people like, what time? That's how we have to train our minds to say we are beings. We didn't react by time. I don't put no time on the communication. I gave away all my staffs that were doing all that because we don't need it. We need to grow up. We need to react at the right space. We need to go back to where we were. We didn't have watches. Okay. So make sure you are subscribed before I kick the studio off. I'm closing. And you click your notification button. I'm just pleading you for your own sake, not for me. Okay. Not for anybody here. For you to be free. Take a step and be responsible to be free. So we see ourselves tomorrow, people. Watch out who is going to come up. And I say good night. Bye-bye. We all love you, but love yourself first. Okay? Like you heard. Forget about oh, we love ourselves. Oh, it's all about love yourself first. And if you love yourself first, then we can share the love between us. You know, giving love is just as generous. Like, I love you, I give you flowers. Oh, we go out, we eat, and so what? We can do all those many things and think we're in love and still remain broke. That's not what we're talking about. Then our families would broke. Oh, my wife doesn't bring in income. My husband doesn't bring in anything, because there's just no basis for that. There's nothing. You can work all your life. You're still going to be broke. Buy your freedom, invest in it, and you never will. Good night. Bye-bye.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tatah. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.
shy.